section. The yellow van sat in its usual spot outside Nelson Mandela House, a defiant splash of color against the gray concrete. It had survived the crash of the 90s, the loss of millions, and the indignity of being used to transport 50 poultry sexers. Inside the flat, Raquel was putting Damien to bed. Cassandra was finally laughing about the policewoman incident, and Dell was already planning a trip to a car boot sale in Margate. Life in Peckham wasn't easy. The bills were high, the lift was always broken, and the dreams were often larger than the reality. But as the sun set over the tower blocks, Derek Trotter stood on his balcony one more time. He felt the weight of the rings on his fingers and the history of his family in his heart. He knew the world would keep turning, the seasons would keep changing, and the tides would keep coming in. Kushti, he whispered to the night. He turned back inside, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Because a trotter is never truly defeated. They are just preparing for the next big deal. And somewhere in the mystery of where it all comes from, the suitcase was already waiting in the van. Part 2, The Bermondsey-Bling. Chapter 31, The Rears and the Anguish. The following Monday dawned with a sky the color of a wet sidewalk. Del Boy sat at the breakfast table, staring into the middle distance, while a solitary piece of toast grew cold and stiff. The bankruptcy was no longer a fresh shock. It had become a dull, aching tooth. Rodney, Del said, his voice barely a rasp. Have you seen the latest from the water board? They're threatening to cut us off. They say our usage is excessive for a bankrupt household. Rodney walked in, fastening his tie. He was wearing his managing director suit, the one that fit a little too snugly in the shoulders and smelled faintly of mothballs. Del, the usage is excessive because you keep leaving the hot tap running to steam your silk shirts. We're supposed to be living within our means. Steam is essential for a professional appearance. Rodney. Del snapped. How am I supposed to secure international contracts if I look like I've just been pulled through a hedge backwards? Raquel entered the kitchen, holding a letter. Her expression was the one Del usually associated with an impending thunderstorm. Del, the bank. They've sent back your check for the nursery fees. It's marked refer to drawer. That's a technical error, Raquel. Del said quickly, standing up. I spoke to the manager only yesterday. He's a big fan of the show. He was probably just confused by the influx of capital. What capital? Del, Raquel asked, crossing her arms. The 40 pounds you made selling vintage umbrellas to the local primary school. It was 60 pounds, Del corrected. And it's a start. Now, don't you worry. I've got a meeting today. A big one. Something with a real sparkle. Chapter 32. A Call from the Past. The meeting was at the Nag's Head, which was currently serving as Del Boy's auxiliary office. He was sitting in the corner, nursing a half pint of Sid's cheapest lager, when the payphone in the corner rang. Sid looked over and nodded toward Dell. "It's for you, Derek. Sounds like Gentleman George." Dell's heart skipped. Gentleman George was a man whose nickname was almost entirely ironic. He had been a semi-professional jeweler in the 70s, specializing in items that had a tendency to change ownership without the benefit of a receipt. "George," Dell said, grabbing the receiver, "how's the world of precious stones treating you?" "Dell boy." George's voice was like gravel in a blender. "I've heard you're looking for a way back to the top. I've got something. A retirement stash. Unregistered, unpolished, and currently sitting in a vault in Soho." "Diamonds," Dell whispered, his eyes widening. "Better. Industrial diamonds. The kind they use in high-precision cutting tools. But these are special. They're high clarity, almost gemstone quality. The owner is a man who needs to liquidate his assets quickly before he moves to, let's say, a more tropical climate." "And the price?" "10 grand. For a lot worth at least 50. But I need an answer by tomorrow. And I need a broker with a cleanish record." Dell looked at Rodney, who was currently trying to fix the jukebox by kicking it. "I've got just the man. George, my managing director. He's got a GCEs and a brain like a diamond itself. We'll be in Soho by 3. Chapter 33, The Soho Connection. The Reliant Regal didn't so much drive to Soho as it groaned its way there, leaving a trail of blue smoke and disgruntled taxi drivers in its wake. "Dell, if this is another Nervous Nick situation, I'm resigning," Rodney said, gripping the dashboard. "Diamonds in Soho. This has Interpol written all over it." "Rodney, you have to think like a mogul," Dell yelled over the roar of the engine. "This is how the big boys play. We buy the raw material, we find a cutter, and we sell the finished product to the elite. It's the circle of life. It's the circle of the exercise yard at Wormwood Scrubs." They arrived at a nondescript office above a shop that sold adult magazines and very specific types of leatherware. The sign on the door said H. Diamond, Gemological Consultant. Inside, the room was dimly lit and smelled of stale cigar smoke. A man with a face like a crumpled map and a suit that cost more than those van sat behind a massive mahogany desk. This was Diamond Harry. "So," Harry said, his voice a smooth tenor, "you're the Trotters. I've heard you're creative. I like creativity. It's what built this city." He reached into his desk and pulled out a small, black velvet bag. With a practiced motion, he tipped the contents onto a white cloth. The stones were small, dull, and looked remarkably like pebbles from a driveway in Lewisham. "There they are," Harry said. "Raw, unrefined potential. 50 units of the finest industrial-grade diamonds available in the Southeast." Chapter 34. Diamonds are a broker's best friend. Rodney leaned in, squinting at the stones. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a jeweler's loupe that Dell had bought from a car boot sale in 1989. Del,